Happy Friday, crew. Rich Beal in the house. 4EVERLEAN. Here we go. Guys, I got a good one for you today. Today, we're going to be talking about all the different strategies you might employ when you're on vacation, when maybe you're just tired of tracking and measuring your food. Maybe you're going in through a long weekend and you know things are just going to be a little bit off. You got guests staying in town, you know you're going to be in and out of the house. You're not in your typical routine. So you might think, what can I actually do to maintain my progress or potentially even continue to make progress if I'm not going to measure or track my food or use MyFitnessPal or something where you're really keeping very specific close eye on your overall calories or macronutrients. So those are the things that we're going to be talking about today. So, and I'm not going to talk about all the different strategies out there. I'm going to talk about 3 that I think are worthwhile, and I'm going to talk about why they are good and maybe some potential drawbacks. So give you a couple of things to consider when you choose the strategy that you think is going to work best for you. Okay, so no particular order here, but the first one that we're going to talk about, this is a classic one for maybe the last 5 to 6 years, I would say, is gotten more and more popular. It's called intermittent fasting, or IF. So intermittent fasting, this is going to be a great technique for overall reducing caloric load throughout the day. So when we're thinking about how do I lose weight, well, we need to create some sort of caloric deficit. So this is a form of reducing calories that doesn't actually employ watching so much what you eat, but now you're going to be working more or less against the clock. So traditionally, intermittent fasting is done with a 16-hour fast and an 8-hour eating window. So for example, when I did it, I typically would eat around 1 p.m. and then I would stop eating around 9 p.m. For a lot of folks, they like going noon to 8 p.m. All right, so the idea is you're only going to eat during that window of time. The caveat being, it's not like you just eat whatever you want and how much of it you want. You still need to eat like a regular sized portion. So you're going to have a lunch, maybe a snack, a dinner, and a snack. Just being mindful of overall portions. One of the drawbacks to IF would be if you are someone who really can't manage your hunger or your appetite. All right, so I'm just going to write in hunger here. For some of us, we get to the end of the fast and it's like, oh my gosh, I could eat my arm off. I'm so hungry. If you get to that point, intermittent fasting might not be the best thing for you. All right, because at the end of the day, if we're going to overeat during that eating window, we're just negating the effect of that fast anyways. So we want to be mindful of being able to control how much we eat. If we're getting too hungry, for some of us, that can be an issue. This is another anecdotal thing for me. If I don't have breakfast, I personally get a little jittery in the morning. So I just feel better. So I'm gonna just write jitters. I get the jitters in the morning, and I just don't particularly like the way that feels. So I generally feel best if I do get a little something in my belly first thing in the morning, and then maybe after that, I'll do a prolonged gap in my eating through the day. So for me, I might use intermittent fasting differently, where I might have a little bit of something early in the morning, but then I might not eat again until maybe 3 p.m. So I'm gonna stretch it out so I still have a little something in my belly, and then I eat a little bit later. You might think, well, you just ruined the fast. Well, remember, we're using the fast for weight loss or reducing the amount of food that we eat. So it doesn't, even though I'm eating in the morning, I'm still not eating for a large chunk of the day, and I'm getting the benefits of the idea of reducing the overall amount of food that I'm eating. So that's intermittent fasting. The second one we can talk about is carb cycling. So carb cycling, I've noticed it's gotten more popular in the last 2 to 3 years. So I'm just gonna call carb cycling CC. So carb cycling. Carb cycling can be done many different ways. For some, they like to do carb cycling over the course of a week. So it's like you would have a low carb day, a moderate carb day, and then a high carb day. Traditionally, a low carb day is 20 carbs or fewer, and you would generally structure those days around days you're not exercising. Whereas on the other side, your high carb days, which might be 200 plus carbs during the day, you would structure those high carb days around the days that you are training or doing some fairly intense physical exercise, because we know carbohydrate, that's our body's natural energy source. So if we do want to get great workouts, a lot of times having a nice amount of glycogen through our muscle tissue, that's going to promote a better workout, because that's going to be the fuel that our muscles use for training. So you have carb cycling done like that. So you might think, all right, well, I'm on vacation. I know I'm gonna work out 1 day a week. So then you're thinking, all right, I'm gonna go super low carb or moderate carb. And the only day that I'm gonna have a high amount of carbs is gonna be the day that I know I'm gonna be physically exerting myself, right? So we're kind of forming rules here where now you're thinking, I'm staying away from all fruit. I'm staying away from all breads, pastas, rices, potatoes. I'm staying away from all those starchy carbs. I'm focusing on green vegetables. I'm focusing on lean meats. That's the kind of thing. So yes, you're reducing carbs in some of those days, but again, the idea is overall reduction in calories, and now we're doing that by excluding major food groups. Now, you can do your carb cycling in terms of days. You can also do your carb cycling throughout the day. And this example, this is more along the lines of if you're going to be exercising regularly. So the idea is you're gonna structure your carbohydrates around your workouts. So before or after your workouts, that's the only time during the day you're gonna be enjoying your carbohydrates. So if you're working out in the morning, maybe you have a banana pre-workout, and maybe you have more fruit or potatoes or something that post-workout, like a later breakfast. Similarly, if you structure your workout later in the day, that would allow you to have maybe some pasta or something like that in the evening. But again, when it's not around workout time, you're not having carbs. You are saying no. It's almost like a way of earning your carbs, so to speak. So again, you're creating rules for yourself. And the idea is you need to be convicted by these rules. So if you go into this thing just kind of tiptoeing, it's not gonna work. So if you're choosing one of these things and you're saying, hey, I'm gonna go carb cycling route, well, you gotta be convicted, you gotta be true to yourself, and you gotta own it. So if it's not workout time, I'm not having a carb, okay? So that's really important to remember. So we have days, and then we have around workout time. And I'm gonna write days. We have low, moderate, and high days. All right, so those are some examples of carb cycling. And again, it's just a form of overall caloric restriction in terms of saying no to literal food groups. Now, the next one that we have here, I'm gonna call intuitive eating. We'll call it IE for intuitive eating, okay? Intuitive eating, this refers to really slowing down while you're eating. Listening to your body's fullness cues, listening to your body's hunger cues while you're eating, stopping when you're about 80% full. For me, intuitive eating requires the highest amount of effort because I have to be so conscious and so aware of my food. Traditionally on intuitive eating, you're also prioritizing whole or unprocessed foods. So you're thinking anything that's packaged, I'm trying to stay away from, and you're really trying to think, hey, how can I have as many whole fruits, whole vegetables, real meat throughout the day as I can? And then when you do eating, you're really slowing down, right? You're slowing the whole process of consuming your food down. It takes our stomachs about 20 minutes to tell our brain that it's full. So some strategies you might use here are eating really slowly. So by eating really slowly, we're thinking chew our food to a pulp. So chewing slowly. Another strategy that I've given clients in the past is eating with your non-dominant hand. So if you're a righty, put that fork in your left hand. Naturally, it's going to make it a slower process for you to eat, unless you're ambidextrous and you can use both hands evenly. But for me, man, that really forced me to go quite a bit slower than normal. I'm typically a very fast eater, so that was very frustrating for me. So I'm gonna say, eat with non-dom hand, all right? And like I mentioned before, we're doing this because we want to sense our body's fullness. And the idea is we're never trying to eat till we're stuffed. So at most, we want to stop eating at 80% full. So if we're eating too quickly, we're not going to sense our fullness, and we're generally going to eat a little bit too much. So the goal here is to eat to 80% full. So again, intermittent or intuitive eating, this is really going to require the most amount of conscious effort. There's no true rules involved other than you're eating slowly, you're choosing whole unprocessed foods. All right, so generally when you do that, you're going to be able to eat a little bit more volume of foods because there's not as many hidden calories in those things. Another strategy, I just want to make this note real fast. This one I actually do like is the idea of focusing on the conversation at the table, right? So talking to the people at your table, using the conversation to slow down your actual eating. So I'm going to say conversation here. Now, intuitive eating I love for my adults who don't have young children. My adults who have young children, you're gonna find this really tough because I know what being at the dinner table is like with kids 5 and under. It can be really chaotic, it can be a little bit stressful, you're constantly cleaning up messes, you're running around, you're trying to manage everybody else while you're trying to eat. So it really doesn't lend very easily to thinking about how full you are while you're eating, because half the time you're just figuring out, hey, do I actually even have time to eat myself? And you kind of end up, eating at the table, then you're eating while you're standing. It can be a little bit of a challenge. So if you do have small kids, that is one consideration to think about. Another consideration here is you can use any one of these strategies independently, or you can kind of mix them. So you can absolutely do some intermittent fasting and pair that with a little bit of carb cycling. So saying, all right, I'm gonna not eat till noon, and when I do eat, I'm gonna eat my carbs in the afternoon because that's when I'm gonna do a little bit of exercise and working out. Or I'm gonna do some intermittent fasting, but I'm gonna really focus on eating really slowly so that I don't overeat because I'm listening to my body's fullness cues, okay? I like all these strategies. I don't really love them for weight loss per se, but in terms of maintenance, I think they're great options. So I would definitely recommend any one of these three, but again, choose something that you feel fully convicted by, and that when you do get into it, give it your full honest effort. Don't limp into it, set the rules and own it, all right? That's really gonna help you see it through. So if you're just kind of, flirting with it a little bit and, you're kind of dabbling in the gray area, so to speak, you're not gonna get the true benefit out of any one of these. So my recommendation is whatever one you choose, you're convicted by, own it, and by the end of your vacation, by the end of your trip, or maybe you just want an overall break from tracking your food, you're gonna tend to be in a good spot. One other comment here is, if you do have access to a weight scale, that would be beneficial as well. So if you do continue to take your body weight in the morning every single day, you'll be able to see, hey, is my weight going up? Is my weight going down? Or am I staying about the same? And then you can use that to gauge, am I eating a little bit too much? Or do I need to reduce the amount that I'm eating for the day? And that will generally help you kind of stay the course, so that when you decide if you did want to get back to measuring and tracking, you know exactly where you're at. Anyways, guys, I hope that was helpful. So we got intermittent fasting, we have carb cycling, and intuitive eating, a couple options for when you're out and about, you're not in your typical routine, you're on vacation, or maybe you just want to take a break from tracking and measuring your food. Hopefully that was useful. If it was, leave a comment, let me know you learned something, and I will speak with you guys soon. Peace.